Good afternoon, everyone. The January 14th, 2025 regular council meeting is called to order at 4:01. We have to start by addressing a procedural matter. There are 3 council members attending electronically. Well, there were 3. Now there are 2. Oh, there's the third one. Good. Section 10.5 of the Council Procedure Bylaw limits the number of members attending electronically to 2 members per meeting. This rule can be temporarily suspended by motion of council. I therefore move that Section 10.5 of the Council Procedure Bylaw be suspended for the duration of the January 14th, 2025 regular council meeting, so Councillors Hoare, Kennington and Mafty can all attend this meeting electronically. Do I have a seconder?
Second that.
Councillor Anderson seconds. All in favour? None opposed. That carries. Council would like to acknowledge the Yukluathot, on whose traditional territories the District of Ucluelet operates. Audience members and delegates are advised that this proceeding is being video recorded and broadcast on YouTube and Zoom, which may store data on foreign servers. There are 3 late items. 2 items were distributed on Monday and 1 was distributed today. Has Council received these items? Great. May I have a motion to amend the agenda by adding the late item titled Applicant's Written Submission Related to Zoning Amendment for 1959 Sinamaka Road under Agenda Item 6.2. Also adding the late item titled Protecting Taxpayers from Overspending on Local Government Construction as Agenda Item 9.4, and adding the late item titled Delegation, Dennis Morgan, Board Member, Raincoast Education Society as Agenda Item 4.1.2.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. We'll call Councillor Hoare the mover and you're the seconder, Councillor Anderson. Now may I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor
So moved.
Anderson. The time lag is killing me. Anyway, all in favor? And that is...
And I'll second.
Councillor Mafty seconds. Okay, we got you. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. Thank you. There are 2 delegations this afternoon, with one of the delegations being added as a late agenda item. Delegates, please limit your presentation to 10 minutes. The first delegate is Sergeant Mark Jones of the Ucluelet RCMP Detachment. Welcome, Sergeant Jones.
Thank you very much. I'll try not to take up too much time. I always say that, and I think I'm pretty good at it. This one may take a little bit longer. What I'm going to be talking about is going to be doing our wrap-up for 2024, so what happened with policing and overall. First of all, before I open up, I just want to start by introducing the newest technology you're going to see on the RCMP, which is in front of me right here. It's called our body-worn cameras. We are the trial ones, us, Tofino, and Houseit for the Vancouver Island, that are going to be doing this. There's other places out in BC that have them trialed. I believe Kelowna, Kamloops, Cranbrook, and Prince George. So you will see these, just there's nothing surprising about them. It is great technology. It's going to start recording all interactions with police and people when we're having to deal with it. And so far, positive reviews from not only the members, but also from the public. Just so you know, it's not recording right now. If you ever see this blinking red, that means we're recording. We will tell you generally when we're recording. So I just thought I'd give you a quick introduction. That is now present, and we've been using it. And so far, it has been a great tool. I would like to also talk about our next fiscal year. As we know that with the RCMP being a federal government, fiscal years roll for April 1st. Because of that, we develop what I call our policing priorities for each of the communities. So I'm just putting it out now to have some thought. Last year, we spoke about it, and it was kind of adopted that we were going to look at school zones, like the playground zone with the schools, and see if we can do some increased presence enforcement, that type of thing. I'd like for some suggestions on what people think would be a nice policing priority when we have the time we can focus on. As you'll see as I go through the presentation, traffic enforcement might be in the different varieties, and I'll explain how it goes along, but might be something to consider, just a little bit more broader than maybe just school and playground zones. In general, for 2024, we saw a very busy year. Our file count went up. I think we were up over 224 more files than we were last year. That is pretty significant. With that, we have a higher prisoner count. Because of that higher prisoner count, and through the reports that I give you, you'll see the numbers and such, we have to take into consideration that we do a lot of joint sharing between us and Tofino. Tofino ran into some issues where they had no guards. We're fortunate. I think we are actually overstaffed with guards now, so it's a great problem to have. But we did end up taking on a bunch of Tofino's prisoners to assist and help them out as well. So our prisoner count numbers will be up because of that. Another thing you'll start to see, it's beyond my control, not that I have an issue with it, is traffic members. You're going to start seeing traffic members. It's become a mandate for the island, and they'll be coming out to all the different areas. So it may be 1, 2, 3. I generally don't have an idea how many times they're going to come out. They will come out, and they enforce the Motor Vehicle Act. That's the guys you're going to be seeing, and I think the majority of the offense statistics I've seen so far when they've been up in our area been cell phones, speeding, and seatbelts. So be mindful and be careful of when you're driving. Please make sure you're not speeding. Please make sure you don't have your cell phone on. I know it's easy to say, but do know that we do have BC Highway Patrol traffic members coming up, and we'll be doing that. We also, myself and the detachment commander at Tofino, we've been doing a cost-sharing initiative where we've brought the impaired driving unit up. We take it out of our own budget. It's something above and beyond their mandates, and they come out to do this. And that's why you're going to see a significant larger number within that report. And I believe the number is 60. And what that means, 60, it's called anything from a 24-hour suspension all the way up to a 90-day driving prohibition due to impaired. It's not a criminal code sanction. It's a Motor Vehicle Act sanction. No criminal records attached. But the importance of that is that's 60 probable impaired drivers that have been taken off the roadways. Now, when I say roadways, don't think it's necessarily just the like Peninsula Road in Ucluelet. A lot of this happens out at the junction, and they set up those roadblocks, and they've done great work. I'm actually kind of shocked at the numbers, because that is a significant amount for this town, but I do understand with the tourists and such, we will end up with those type of issues. One thing through a quick little brief conversation I had with the mayor and the SAO, we always have certain things to consider, and one of the problems we always have is the sexual offenses that we get in our community. So one of the things that's come up is that we do have what's called third-party sexual assault reporting. This is done outside the RCMP. It's done by Jenna Pierce over at the West Coast Resource Center here. They do an excellent job. It's another program that's set up to help victims of these type of offenses. There's always there's a bit of a reluctance, and rightly so, why they might not want to approach police in regards to these type of offenses. This is another form to help out victims so they can get the help they need. And if it needs to go forward, I'm sure that through conversations they may approach the police to do that. But nonetheless, it's an excellent, I just wanted to bring it out so that the community understands there are some other programs to help people in those situations. Overall, things I want to just quickly throw out, numbers, like some of the things our detachment does that I think that never gets recognized is we have 2 great ladies that work in as our staff there. One of the duties they do outside of the many, many things they do to keep our detachment running is they do criminal record and vulnerable sector checks for the community. These are generally done free. There are a couple occasions where you have to pay for some prints and different ideas, but I added up last year, they did over 261 of those for the community members. It can only be for people from Ucluelet. It can't, if you live outside of Ucluelet, you have to go to the place where you're residing. So that's a pretty large number of extra work that our staff is taking on, and it's not something that's done in a couple minutes. It takes time to do. Another thing I'm very happy to announce is that we worked on some proactive work downtown by the aquarium. That whole downtown portion down there was becoming an issue with public intoxication, public drinking, and we had a number of complaints about that. So we initiated some foot patrols. There was proactive work, And as a result, I believe it was very positive. There was a lot of interactions, a lot of warnings to start off with, keep people out of the area, to quit doing the things they were doing. And unfortunately, when it doesn't stop, then we do some forms of enforcement. And as a result, you'll see some of the significant numbers that have increased, such as our Liquor Act offenses were up a considerable amount. Our liquor seizures as well. There was a significant amount of liquor that was dumped as well. And that will also inadvertently attribute to certain occasions where our prisoner count may go up, because when you do have an extremely intoxicated person who has no safe place to go or somebody able to take care of them, we unfortunately still have to deal with the problem. As well, we did focus efforts within the school playground area. A lot of that was, for the most part, a visible presence, trying to educate, trying to keep people to slow down. From my quick recollection of it, I don't think there was, I think actually, to be honest, there's minimum maybe 1 or 2 violation tickets handed out for something like that. But for the most part, it was trying to keep people to slow down. So before I wrap this up here, as you are aware, we can see some of the statistics. Overall, like I said, I explained to you some of the different areas that I'm see where we have larger increases and the reasons why. One area which I noticed it's increased, didn't increase significantly, but it's still a large number. Our mental health situations where the members are called to deal with mental health, it's up to 64 files we've had where we're dealing with people with mental health issues. Now, this can be as simple as trying to talk to somebody and help them out in their crisis that they're going through. And it may also be that we have to apprehend them under the Mental Health Act to take them up to the hospital so they can get medical attention. I'm not a big fan of these. I understand they need our help and I'm appreciative of it, but this is a medical issue. I don't like it being a police issue, but nonetheless it is in our lap and we have to deal with it. Just to understand too that when we deal with the mental health apprehensions, they're not done quickly. We have to drive all the way to Tofino. We have to wait with the person till the doctor gets a chance to do an evaluation to determine if the person's going to stay, be it voluntary or involuntary, and then we are able to leave from that point. So just know that those are significant time-consuming actions that we end up having to do. A positive note, which I really like, is our victim services referrals that have been accepted are up. They're up actually considerably from last year. So I'm happy about that. And I've noticed we've talked to victim services and they've noticed an increased amount of work. So it's good to see that the public is taking part in these programs to help them out as well. In general, that's about it. I would really like if we have an opportunity to consider some of those policing priorities for our next year to determine what's going to be important for the community. And overall, 2024 was pretty good. The statistics show, there were certain increases in others, but overall, as I was saying, it has relatively been pretty good. It's not we're not experiencing any, significant trends in, break and enters or, or violent crimes or such. In fact, it seems like some of them have started to reduce a bit. So overall, I think that it's been a good year. Even though we've had a larger file count, it's been good from that aspect. We are still pushing forward for business cases within the province and such for extra resources, permanent resources, and also trying to get our detachment upgraded a little bit more for a bit more room. And overall, that's about it. I just want to thank mostly, we encounter a lot of partners. They come from the municipal, the provincial, and from the federal level. We have great relationships with them. I can't thank them enough. I mean, we deal from the municipal level, right from the fire department all the way up to the municipal employees. They've been excellent to deal with. From the provincial level, we deal with the ambulance, always professional, excellent. They've been great partners. It's really nice to see how everybody works together. And right up to the federal as well, we deal with Parks Canada, deal with DFO and all that, Department of Fisheries and Oceans, sorry. And it's been a great relationship. I'm always happy that it's always been positive. So thank you for all that. And that pretty much wraps up my summary for 2024, unless somebody has any specific questions they want to ask or concerns.
Thank you, Sergeant Jones. I had a question about your camera.
Mm-hmm.
Do you turn it on with every encounter? Like if you are called to a mental health situation, do you have that camera turned on for the duration of that encounter?
Absolutely. Yeah, we will be doing it for, unless it's a non-police encounter, like we're just talking to somebody friendly on the side of the road or something like that, we're not going to turn it on. But if we have any type of police encounter, like a file of any type, members will be turning it on, and that's to protect the public and the member as well.
Right. So someone now has to be in charge of filing all that footage and categorizing it. And
Yeah, it's it's dealt from a provincial level, so we do have it stored down in headquarters in Surrey, and there's a lot of protections in place. It's non-tamper proof. Members have no access to being able to deal with it. Once it gets uploaded, it's gone. You can't touch it. You can't delete it. You can't do anything. So there's no. Once it's there, it's there. So I have the joy of reviewing them at different times. So and we're also experiencing the growing pains of new technologies and having to issue this when we have reports to Crown Council. We have to now have video uploaded, transcribed, and redacted. What that means is that just because we have a video going doesn't mean that everything is going to be shown to everybody. There may be innocent people walking in the background, so we have to make sure that they're blacked out. It's called redaction because there's privacy issues we always have to make sure of. So there's a unit that takes care of that before it goes off.
interesting. Thank you. And just on the traffic note, have you noticed anybody rolling through our new four-way stop sign?
Yeah, let's. Unfortunately, that's going to be an interesting situation. Yes, there are people. I would really hope that we can educate and hope people will stop a little bit more. We'll progress along, and maybe that might be something to take into consideration when it comes time for developing what you feel are policing priorities. I mean, I know what we'll always have to do as police officers, but I also want to see if there's something we can also focus on that might benefit the community a bit. And as I've said before, just my belief is that it's not necessarily always enforcement. It's not about enforcement. There comes a time for enforcement, but there also comes a time to talk to people, to try to educate, try to be a little bit more reasonable, and hoping that we can get people to change the behaviors. And that's what we originally strived for. So there may come a time when we do need to, but I'm hoping that other options can be used before that.
Yeah, so education first.
Yeah.
Any questions or suggestions for Sergeant Jones for the new policing year? Policing priorities? Councillor Anderson?
Through the mayor, I was going to say on the there's a 33 bylaw on here so far for the count. Is that after hours? So if it's bylaw, is our officer is doing it during the day or during their hours?
Yeah, they can be broken down into different things. Some of them are after hours, some of them may be on weekends, some of them may be assisting the bylaw officer. Sometimes when the bylaw officer goes there, there's safety concerns, so we will assist to back her up just to make sure that everything's okay, keep the peace.
Right.
And so that's what those would entail. To break it down exactly, I'd have to go through each one, but that's generally what those will revolve around.
Right. Okay, great, that's it.
Thank you. Anyone online? Councillor Hoare?
I'm curious, if someone is on their phone and driving, what does that fall under? Is that a form of impaired driving?
No, it falls under the Motor Vehicle Act. That's use of the cell phone under the Motor Vehicle Act.
Okay, I was just looking for it on the offenses. I must have missed it.
No, sorry, it's not recorded on there.
Okay.
As I was just explaining, what I was saying is the BC Highway Patrol, you'll notice there's one section that talks about the statistics that come out for traffic enforcement and such. And I've broken it down between what the members in UQLIT do and what the members in the BC Highway Patrol when they send us their stats. So when I get an overview of their stats, it generally will give me a quick rundown. It might be like 7 seatbelts, 3 speeding, 2 cell phones. That's the type of thing that falls under the Motor Vehicle Act. I don't record that as a stat. But again, you know what? I'm always open to change. If there's something in here that you don't see that you would like to see, let's have a discussion. And if it's some sort of statistic that I can bring up or add in, we can always do something like that. Or if there's statistics here that you're not happy with, that you don't care to see, we can always get rid of them too.
Yeah, I just find the number of impaired driving, that the amount of it that's still going on is just, yeah, we're a tiny town. You can walk anywhere. I find it hard to see those numbers.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, and it's great that to have the out of town guys pull people over for impaired, because that could potentially divert an accident down the road if they were allowed to continue to drive impaired.
Yeah, there's always that potential, and it's something we hope to prevent. We don't want anybody to get hurt.
Right. Councillor Kennington, Councillor Mafty, anything from you? Nope. Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. I'll just leave with maybe just think about it. Maybe listen if some people phone you up or want to talk to you. It's not something you have to give me an answer through today, but please, like, maybe we can meet a little bit later on, and you can give me some ideas, and maybe we could hash out what might be some policing priorities to focus on as well. All right.
We'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The second delegate is Dennis Morgan, board member of the Raincoast Education Society. Welcome, Mr. Morgan.
Green? Oh, that's different. Okay. I don't have to talk.
Can I interrupt for 1 minute? I'm obviously the executive director of the Raincoast Education Society, and I'm under the impression that since this is a delegation that implies no decision or comment, it's not a conflict of interest for me to remain. But I'd like to double check that before Mr. Morgan speaks.
Thank you for that. I believe you're correct, but just checking with Mr. Rotenberg.
So, out of abundance of caution, a conflict of interest is a complicated issue and it should be considered by you. But out of abundance of conscience, I generally recommend that if you have a interest in the matter that's personal to you, and you shouldn't engage in conversation about it.
So Mr. Rotenberg is suggesting that you leave the room?
Okay, I can do that. I think Nancy has to help me do that. Or I can leave. I can mute and stop my video, or leave my video and leave the room. That's fine.
We're just looking into it. Stand by.
Councillor Mafty?
Yeah, I think if he leaves the room.
Yes, if you leave the room momentarily and mute and turn off your camera, that would be ideal, and I will text you when you can come back.
Okay, thank you. I will do that.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Morgan.
All right, thank you. Thank you again, I think, Nancy, for getting me on with this. Yeah, at very late. We submitted the request late, and you accommodated that, and we greatly appreciate it. My name is Dennis Morgan. I am an almost 11-year resident of Ucluelet. I have 2 kids in the high school, and I own and operate a small business here. Who the RES is, the Raincoast Education Society, is a nonprofit that's been around the communities of Tofino and Ucluelet for, well, it was going before I moved here. Dan Harrison used to run it out of Tofino. It's probably 15 years or so. And in that time, it's been delivering environmental education in various forms, workshops, the ambassador program, speakers, interpretive displays, interpretive walks, etc., and also importantly, through interns who we have working in both elementary schools, both the Wickaninnish and the Ucluelet one, programs that we deliver year-round in those schools at no cost to anybody except the Raincoast Education Society. So it has touched, if you have kids, it's probably touched your life in some manner. So when we saw the opportunity for Amphitrite House pop up, originally there were other applicants that got the lease and then backed away, and at that time, Mark, who was on top of this, said we should maybe have a presence in there. And so we had initial discussions with the Wild Pacific Trail Society and said, would you want to partner and do programming out of the house, which satisfied district requirements for a 7-day presence there, and for a sort of a community-oriented presence. So over the period of May and June, we worked together with Wild Pacific Trail Society to build an MOU. They are considered the primary leaseholder in this agreement that was eventually accepted. Even though we would be there 5 days of the week and they would be there Tuesdays, days of the week, they're still primary, but that doesn't really matter. And at the same time, we submitted to council, and a lease agreement, a joint lease agreement application was submitted in June, and that was accepted by council on July 30th. And we finalized our MOU between the two nonprofits. So everything looked really good. We were set and ready to go. And then a period of waiting began, waiting and some confusion as to why for the wait. In August, in July, we were told that it would be August we could get occupancy. Well, that we could occupy. I shouldn't use occupancy as a term right here. In August, we were told September 1st. In September, we were told the end of the month. And at that point, after some questions were asked, we found out that we weren't going to get in there anytime soon because there was no occupancy permit in place because there was a dispute between the district staff and the contractor. And as far as we understand at this point, that's over a door that is not meeting the particular requirements. So that's kind of what has been holding everything up. And so we are, because the delay is ongoing, there is still confusion as to when we will get in there, and there is nothing that we're aware of, because none of this has been made public, that is happening between the district and the contractor to resolve that and get an occupancy permit for the building. We've invested time, money, we've hired somebody. A woman was hired in October, full-time, to meet that 5-day requirement. And she's been sitting around twiddling her thumbs. She was okay with that for a couple months, but she's getting increasingly not okay. She needs some direction. She's a person we hired who has secure housing, and you know what that's like. If we lose her, it's a major step backwards for our ability to fulfill our obligations in this matter. So we're upset because it appears there's been some deceit. We have been led along down the garden path kind of thing, and that's inappropriate. So at this point, what we're looking for is, I guess, council to go to staff, relevant staff, and say, what is going on? What is going on with the contract dispute? Can we carve off the occupancy aspect of this so that the building can be brought to, given its permit? And then if there's an ongoing dispute with a contractor, that can go on for years, right? Just separate the matters, deal with the door. Like, we could probably put the door in. But we do need some clarity on that, because we're going to lose our employee, and that's going to set us back. And if this isn't separated, if the matters are continued to be treated as one, that house won't get occupied for years. You know how these contract disputes can go. So that's the request. That's why I'm here, is to request, as a board member of the Raincoast Education Society, that council look into this and come up with some solutions to getting the program and going out there as that building was meant to be, used for.
Thank you for your delegation, and we do have this item as an in-camera agenda item this evening, and whether we rise and report from that will be determined by how that conversation goes at that time. So we will give you as much information as we're allowed to give you.
Lots, please.
Thanks, Mr. Morgan. Is there any unfinished? Oh, we need Councillor Mafty back. All right, we've got everybody back. Welcome back, Councillor Mafty.
Thank you.
Is there any unfinished business for council? Seeing none, there are 2 bylaw items on the agenda. The first bylaw item is 6.1, District of Ucluelet Building Bylaw number 1363, 2025. This report will be presented by the Director of Community Planning. Mr. Gregg, please provide a brief overview of the report.
Thank you. Through the mayor, new microphone. Okay, so the building bylaw 1363, the report provides a good sort of overview. Just really briefly, the BC Building Code sets the minimum standards for building construction throughout the province of British Columbia. The municipal building bylaw, which is what the purpose of this report is about, is really the administrative bylaw that enables the system of permits and plan reviews and inspections that maintain the minimum health and safety standards of the building code for residents and visitors to the community. So what's in front of council, adopting this new building bylaw 1363 would update the framework to essentially of permits and plan reviews to reflect the current practices and to also make permitting more consistent for builders on the West Coast. I would note that the existing building bylaw number 1165 was adopted some 10 years ago. And so we've looked at some essentially updating the bylaw and then the associated schedules that are within the fees and charges bylaw around permit fees and deposits, and also the MTI bylaw, which is for infractions. So the building code, just a couple of things I'll note out of the report that are important. It's just building code, and I'll reiterate this all the time, it's adopted by the province. The municipality can't change the building code within its own municipal bylaws, and that's something that not so many years ago the province kind of clawed back the local building codes and essentially to enable consistency or to create consistency between municipalities. And so the draft that's in front of council, the bylaw 1363, is based on a template that's provided by the Municipal Insurance Association of BC. So it's very familiar or common with many or most municipalities in the province who sort of use it as kind of the guts of the bylaw. There are a couple of things that are tweaked, and I'll touch on those. But really, this is also the template that's been used by our neighbor Tofino. So this would create a really consistent parallel framework for builders who, many of them build in both communities. So, when in doubt, if we can, let's align our regulations. So that's the approach that we've taken. So a couple of things to note that are a change from the old bylaw that are noted in the report. One is retaining walls, and the level at which a retaining wall needs a building permit would be 1.2 meters. That's a change from 1.5 meters. That's really to become standard. Most municipalities have the 1.2 meters. It also echoes where essentially the profession of engineers recommend that they should be involved. So that's where it aligns, where you have structural on walls. And Tofino, they've noted that they're looking at changing their 1.5 to 1.2, and so someone has to go first on that one fairly minor change. The other thing of note is the temporary shelter during construction of a single-family dwelling. That's something that's kind of an existing Ucluelet thing, and so it's retained. That's within our zoning bylaw as well that allows for that. So that allows someone who has a single-family lot, they're building it themselves, could essentially have a deposit and bring usually it's an RV or trailer that's on the property while they're constructing their home. So that's unchanged really. And a couple other small things. Swimming pool fencing is something that our bylaw is silent on. It brings in minimum standards for fencing to keep them safe, and you have to maintain that fence. So essentially keeping kids out or people sort of wandering in not knowing. So it's either a fence or for like hot tubs a cover that keeps them safe. So that's something that our bylaw was silent on. And it's not something that's common. We are a coastal community, but from time to time there are some new homes where a pool, lap pool, that kind of thing does come into play. And then I just touch on a couple of changes in the associated bylaw. So fees and charges, and an MTI. So one of the things that sort of functionally is around increasing the time limit that a permit is valid to 24 months, because it does, buildings are complex. Some of them do take longer, so it becomes a more consistent time frame. But also then having or inserting a time limit for to pay for and pick up your permit after it's been approved, to essentially say if it's ready to go, you've got 6 months. Where now we do have people who sometimes, for whatever reason, apply for a permit, don't pick it up, time goes by, then the code changes and you get all kinds of awkward things. So this would at least put some framework in there, and 6 months seems like a generous amount of time to pick up your permit. Other things in the, matching Tofino and things like damage deposits, then the amount would increase. The old damage deposit, where currently it's like $1,000. If a contractor cracks a sidewalk panel, that's one panel of cement on a sidewalk. $1,000 doesn't go very far. It did maybe 10 years ago, so it increased that to $2,500. Again, it's a deposit, which the builder gets back. That's just something so that if there is damage to municipal infrastructure, there's some cash being held to make sure it gets repaired without cost to the taxpayer. And then the other one would be also fines to match the Tofino bylaw and to update them. There is an increase in the fines or the MTI. It is, I would just note, so this would essentially echo what Tofino has. It's rare that those are used. If anything, it's probably occasionally if you get someone who's occupying a building before they get occupancy and there's like a health or safety issue, that's about the case where you may want to use a ticket as a way of trying to encourage someone after conversation that, yes, there's issues to be dealt with to maintain the safety of the building. Beyond that, I just say, a lot of staff work has gone into this by our building inspectors. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But yes.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. It was a very thorough report. Thank you for that. Any questions from council? No, I think it says it all. We have a couple of recommendations. And I believe they should be moved separately.
I can do it.
Councillor Hoare, go ahead.
Get on the right page, Jen. I move that council give first, second, and third reading to District of Ucluelet Building Bylaw number 1363, 2025.
I'll second.
Councillor Mafty seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries.
I will move that council give first, second, and third reading to District of Ucluelet Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 1364, 2025.
Do I
I'll
have
second.
Councillor Mafty seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries.
And I will move that council give first, second, third reading to District of Ucluelet Municipal Ticket Information Amendment Bylaw number 1365, 2025.
I'll second.
Councillor Mafty seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries. Thank you. Thank you for all your work on this. The second bylaw item is 6.2, zoning amendment for 1959 Sinamaka Road. I'd like to note the late correspondence item submitted by the applicant. And after this report is presented by the Director of Community Planning, the applicant or their representative will have an opportunity to address council. And I know the applicant is not available, but Mr. Cole is online should council have any questions for him. Mr. Gregg.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here and give a little brief overview. Okay, there we go. So yes, this is a zoning amendment. Just really briefly, it's fairly straightforward, I'd say. It's a rezoning for the residential property at 1959 Sinamaka. which is right on the corner of Pacific Crescent. So this aerial photo, as is highlighted there, their proposal is very simply to split the lot into two, that they would keep the existing house, which you can see the roof of it there on what's labeled as proposed Lot A, and then on Lot B, highlighted in yellow on the screen there, is a shed and a garage, and there's some correspondence there. Their intent is to remove those buildings, but to leave the house. So this is it could be characterized as what we would refer to as an infill subdivision, and so the zoning amendment, quite simply, would be to allow a smaller lot size to have the two lots there. So the architect has provided sort of an example, because they were testing out, okay, well, how could you build and what could you build on this? So their proposal is to rezone to Lot 6. That allows a smaller lot size for the two lots. The floor area ratio for Lot B, which is the lot where they would remove the garage and build a new house, they're proposing to increase that to a floor area ratio of 0.485. That allows for about a 1,900 square foot house, total floor area on that new lot. And essentially, in a nutshell, that is the proposal. The one thing I'd also just note, and it shows probably in this back, is the configuration of the lot. It is a corner lot with a bit of an acute angle of where Pacific meets Sinamaka. So there's quite a bit of space on the corner there that's within the road right of way. There's an existing tree, and a lot of that area there is actually boulevard. So although it is a fairly small lot, it's a little over 3,000 square feet would be the new lot. It actually, in terms of how would it appear within the neighborhood, staff opinion is that it won't look out of place, that the lot will look larger, and it does look larger currently than it is. So I would put that out as just a bit of context. Beyond that, I would just see if there's any questions for staff.
Thank you. I note in the report that a public hearing would normally be held, but the legislation now prohibits a public hearing for this type of rezoning.
That is correct, because the zoning is really for housing, that council's now prohibited from holding public hearings on those types of zoning amendments, because it'd be adding housing. So this really would be, again, giving notice of first reading would be the step here, and then it would come back at a future council meeting after we've given notice for consideration.
So the neighbors at that point would all be notified of this change?
They would be aware, absolutely, but it wouldn't be a public hearing or seeking input necessarily.
Right. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gregg from council? Councillor Henderson? Nope. Okay, it looks pretty straightforward. You were right. Would council like to make a motion? There is a recommendation here for first reading.
I can do that.
Councillor Kennington, go ahead.
I will move that council direct staff to give notice of first reading for District of Ucluelet zoning amendment bylaw number 1354, 2024.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. Thank you. The only report item is 7.1, Joint Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Grant Application. This report will be presented by our Fire Chief, Chief Geddes.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Council. Today here simply seeking a resolution in support of another UBCM grant application that I'm making, and it's a joint application with the ACRD. The idea of the grant is to bolster our emergency support services capacity as far as equipment and supplies that we would have on site in the community, and it was seen as a great way to partner with the ACRD, because in a time of emergency, as we know, with the Area C representation out here, a lot of them would become our problem, for lack of a better word, for ours to deal with. So it's in relation to the ongoing relationships with the ACRD, we felt in discussions with them this would be a great one to combine forces with. Normally now the UBCM grants don't require a resolution of council. They've changed how they how they distribute the grants, and they've also upped the funding to most of the grants to $40,000 now. But because this is a joint application, it requires a resolution of council, so that council's aware of the proposal. The report is fairly general as far as what exactly we would be looking at, and at a high level, we'd be looking at more storage, so most likely another CCAN that would sit right behind the UAC hall. There's a pad, and it fits 2 CCANs. There's only one on there. And we basically fill that with emergency supplies such as food, water. One thing we don't have in our emergency cache is pet supplies. So we'd be bolstering our supply of that. And then individual items for our emergency support service volunteers, such as jackets, vests, and ball hats, some better flashlights, headlamps, and all types of assorted things like that. Sandwich boards and actual signage for if we do open reception center or group lodging. So those are the types of things we'll be looking at under this funding stream, as well as there's opportunity for some training in there as well. So happily answer any questions.
Thank you. So this is a partnership between the ACRD, the District of Ucluelet, and the City of Port Alberni. Is that correct?
Through the mayor, that's correct, but officially ACRD, they oversee, as you know, emergency planning for City of Port Alberni as well, yeah.
So they'll be the one administrating this.
Through the mayor, that's correct. The ACRD would actually be responsible for managing the grant. We're just basically saying, here's taking our share, and then we reap the benefits of the grant funding.
It seems like a no-brainer to me. Any questions for the chief? No? Okay, there is one recommendation.
I can jump on that.
Councillor Anderson?
I will move that council authorize the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District to apply for, receive, and manage grant funding through the Union of BC Municipalities 2025 Community Emergency Preparedness Fund on behalf of the District of Ucluelet for emergency services, response supplies, and equipment.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. Any further discussion? Councillor Mafty?
No, that was me trying to beat the lag with all in favor. But if I piped up, congratulations, good luck. I'm very proud of this work that you've done, and you should be too.
Thank you. So we have a mover and a seconder. No further discussion. All in favor? None opposed. That carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any notices of motion, Council? Seeing none, there are 4 information items, one of which is the late item we added to the agenda. Would Council like to bring any of these items forward for discussion? The first one is the Barclay Community Forest new signage. These are very large new signs that the Society has had made. I believe there'll be one on either end of the community forest. So whether you're entering from one end or the other, you'll have this information. The second item is just introducing the next Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia, Wendy Kochia. The third item is the AVICC Joint Area Association Virtual Engagement Session, which is taking place on February 28th. And the last item is the late item, protecting taxpayers from overspending on local government construction. Any discussion on any of those items? All right, Mayor's announcements and Council Committee reports. First, I'd like to say a fond farewell to Mr. Rotenberg. We're sorry to lose you, but congratulations and best of luck on your future endeavors. Friday will be Mr. Rotenberg's last day with the district, and thank you for all your assistance over these years. Council Committee reports. Councillor Anderson.
Not too much to report right now. We had a good long break there, so there wasn't too much happening. There was Economic Development Committee meeting, but I did miss that meeting. But there were great notes taken. So, yeah, but nothing pressing on my end.
Thank you. Our last regular council meeting was December 10th. So when I was jotting down all these meetings, it was like reliving Christmas all over again. Councillor Hoare?
Not much to report. We had the special committee, the whole strategic planning one on December 12th that we were all at. And the special council meeting on December 19th. And beyond that, yeah, it's actually been a break.
Great, thank you. Councillor Kennington?
Nothing to report at this time.
Councillor Mafty?
The two meetings Jen mentioned. Beyond that, nothing else that I've attended to report on.
All right, thank you. For myself, December 11th was the Barclay Community Forest Corporation meeting at the Tokwat office, and then from there we had a Christmas lunch over at Heartwood. The whole board was there. And that afternoon was an ACRD meeting via Zoom. Nothing particular that affected the West Coast at that one. December 12th was the Committee of the Whole meeting here to finalize our strategic planning. And then I attended the Sail Pass that evening, which was fantastic. December 13th was the district Christmas party at Howlers. December 16th was the Resort Community Collaborative meeting on Teams. That's the 14 resort community mayors. And then there was a Resort Community Collaborative information session following that meeting. And that was with the new Minister of Tourism. So that was introducing ourselves to the new Minister of Tourism. December 18th was a Tourism Ucluelet Board meeting on Zoom. December 19th was our special council meeting regarding Arif and Manado Bay. And this past weekend, January 10th to 12th, was the Tourism Ucluelet Board retreat at Pacific Sands. So most of the board was there for the weekend to brainstorm and go over the new tactical plan for the coming year. And that's it for my meetings. We are now moving on to question period. This is an opportunity for the public to ask questions and comment on matters within Council's jurisdiction. Representations about bylaws that Council is prohibited from holding a public hearing on, or bylaws that were subject to a public hearing, are not permitted at this time. Are there any audience members that wish to address Council? We've got one. No? Okay. Are there any members of the public attending by Zoom or telephone that wish to address Council?
If there is anyone on Zoom, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. Via telephone, *9. No hands are raised at this time.
Thank you. Have we received any emails to communityinput@ucluelet.ca during the meeting?
We have not received any emails at this time.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is a closed session. Section 10.6 of the Council Procedure Bylaw prohibits council members from attending closed sessions electronically. That said, this provision can be temporarily suspended by council motion. Councillor Hoare, Councillor Kennington, and Councillor Mafty, are you attending from a secure location?
Yes.
Great. I move that Section 10.6 of the Council Procedure Bylaw be temporarily suspended for the remainder of the January 14th, 2025 regular council meeting to allow Councillors Kennington, Hoare, and Mafty to electronically attend the closed portion of this meeting. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Anderson seconds. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. I move that the January 14th, 2025 regular council meeting be closed to the public pursuant to the following sections of the community charter. 90 brackets 1 brackets C, labor relations or other employee relations. 90 brackets 1 brackets E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. 90 brackets 1 brackets G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality, and 90 brackets 1 brackets I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Anderson seconds. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. The meeting is now closed to the public at 4:56.
Councillors, I will close this meeting and we will reopen the closed session. Please go to the other Zoom link.